Hey, this is BA and welcome to Busted. W.D. Gann and Luther Jensen in cahoots. Let's get started. About 2005, an investigator was hired by this presenter to better understand the life of Luther James Jensen, known in the Gann circles as LJ. What he discovered, meaning what the investigator discovered, would help many better understand Gann's techniques. Jensen worked for W.D. Gann from about 1930 up until Gann's death in the summer of 55. At that point, Jensen took a couple of years off and then joined up with Wall Street firm that he forecasted for through the 60s and 70s. Jensen was well off as the investigator found and interviewed an old aging man that knew Jensen personally and had been to his house several times in the late 1930s. A direct quote from this man was that Jensen was well off, meaning he had a nice house which was nicely decorated. Okay. Jensen left behind for us some small pamphlets, of which some were woven into a book entitled Astral Cycles and Speculative Markets. This book is currently, as of this writing, still to be found on the internet. I highly recommend it. And no, I don't sell it. You can get it on the internet. Okay. This book is critical to understand that Gann was really doing. It contains the square of 90 and an explanation of how to get it working. Okay. Now, I'll tell you something. The reason why the square of 90 is important is in the Euro US dollar and in the Aussie dollar, in the currency pairs. Okay. And I've not really worked on the other currency pairs, but in those two, it's extremely important because it works really well in there. Whereas if you try the square of 90 on something like, say, the stock of IBM, which I trade the options in, it doesn't work. It falls apart. Okay. So what I'm telling you is that if you're trading the Euro US dollar or the Aussie dollar without using the square of 90, you're crazy, man. That's where it's at. The book also explains things like the business cycle. Okay. Well, what is up with this business cycle? The work financed by the Harvard Committee on Research in Social Sciences has resulted in tracing this correlation from the 17th century South Sea bubble down to the present year. The last sunspot cycle began with a minimum of spots in 1923, a maximum in 28-29, and another minimum in 33-34. Another maximum point is expected late in 1938. Let me show you how this works, okay? This works because of sunspots. With rising sunspots, you get rising economic activity. With declining sunspots, you get declining business activity. Now, I know what you're thinking. How in the hell can this be? And when I first read it, I was like, nah, it can't be that simple. And it actually is. Okay. I'm going to make a video called Economic Trend that will go into detail on being able to forecast these methods. But that lies outside the parameters of this current video. Okay. Once again, that's going to be called Economic Trend. All right. Stock market low was in 22, maximum stock market 29, low 1932, and high in 37 and 38 in the stock market. So as you can tell, these are kind of important numbers, okay? It is amazing to think that the entire boom and bust business cycle can be boiled down to sunspot numbers. Yet in the 19 years I have had Jensen's book, I can say through firsthand examination and research on over 100 years of historical data that indeed this is the cause. This presentation is being compiled in March of 2016. At the time of this writing, at the time of this presentation, the sunspot cycle has peaked, and the business cycle has also peaked. It has been starting to show up in data, and the worldwide economy is said to be slowing. This was easy for me to predict years in advance. My next target, a massive economic low point, is in 2020 and 2022 area. Now, let's stop and think about this, okay? You have a market that is in the U.S. anyway, is kind of high. And you have declining sunspots, okay? So you have a slowing economy. And there's business owners out there right now that are going out and taking loans because they think it's just a lull and we're going to continue up. can you see what's going to happen to them? Okay, we've already peaked. I don't care where the Dow goes this year. We've already peaked, and we're heading to a low, a massive low, in 2020 and 2022. And I'll put more of that information in my video called Economic Trend. Okay, but and you could ask, well, why is this important for the Forex market? Well, it's mildly, but mainly as overall economic indicator. This is just incredible stuff. It really is once you start working with it. What's important to us in this presentation is that Jensen really helps us understand W.D. Gann's methods. Jensen never directly alludes to Gann in his book, but he worked for him for over 25 years. Jensen definitely, and those capital letters, definitely knew Gann's methods. Therefore, it is important to research Jensen's book first, as this will provide background to the seeker. Let's take a look at some parts of Jensen's book. I first acquired my book in April 3rd, 1997. And instead of showing pristine copies, which I could have acquired, I wanted to show you my well-worn original. Okay. Pythagoras taught further that there is a numerical relation in all phenomena. The harmonic intervals of numbers with sounds and the relationship to the square of the hypotenuse in a right-handed triangle is equal to the sum of the squares on the other two sides. And more important, that angles of a sphere have specifically corresponding numbers which are sensitive to those angles in space, infinity, and time. The lift, or angle, of charted prices does coincide with numbers at specific points in space corresponding to price and time. In these observations is the entire basis of geometrical charting. Okay. All degrees which divide 90 equally are related to resistance. Okay. Any unit, like 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, etc., are all harmonical divisions of 90, while 1/3, 1/6, 1/8, etc., are all harmonical divisions of 120. The 120-degree angles and their harmonical divisions relate to coordination, harmony, and balance. They are not only unifying. Okay, so in zodiac sign relations, they tie everything together. In market charts, these units mark areas of market adjustment or areas and periods of consolidation in time and price. Okay, very important stuff here. In preparing charts, it does not matter what unit of measure that we select, just as long as it's followed throughout the chart. Use any type of paper from 20 by 20 squares to the inch to 1 by 1 square of the inch. The only point is to maintain balance of units. Very important. According to the Pythagorean observation, the degree units, angles of a circle, have numerical coordinates which are harmonical. In this instance, the 90 degrees. Okay, from all these. Okay. From the axis, these points form angles of 90, 45, 22.5, 11.25. And 75, 60, 30, 15, 45, 90, etc. in the trines. Note that 90 and 45 appear in both groups, indicating they are doubly strong. Then this is really critical. Think in numbers rather than angles. That is out of wow. You know, if you knew the power of that, you would be blown away. That's really a key. This whole thing here. Okay. This coincides with 88, 44, 22-day cycles of Mercury, these 90, 45, and 22.5. So it can be readily observed that the Pythagorean postulate proves out that there's a harmonical relationship between angles and numbers, which in terms of market charts tie up the lift of the price structure with time and resistance. Okay, here's the square of 90. Gann also talks about the square of 90. Jensen gives us far more detailed and easier to understand instructions. And like I said, if you're trading some of those Forex markets without using the square of 90, you're massively handicapped. It works like a beauty in there. Really, really tight, clean on everything. Really good, impressive. Okay, so the importance of Jensen's book can quickly be seen, and we just touched on a couple elements. Did you know this information? My guess is most of you did not. If you have gained insight from my videos, subscribe so you can get the latest on my free market calls, forecast, commentary, and teachings. Knowledge is priceless. This is BA reminding you that you can succeed. Bye-bye.